We are live. Hi, everyone. This is Sophia, and welcome to NDFA Northside Democracy for America. We believe the largest grassroots political organization in Illinois. As previously mentioned in our last meetings, we've normally met on the second Wednesday of the month at Chief O'Neill's. So for the time being, this is our new way of communication. It's our new normal for a while. And as we try to keep ourselves informed on how to navigate the political landscape, we'll be meeting you online. I want to go ahead and give a huge shout out to Hard Lens Media, who's been helping us out with our online meetings. Shout out to Jerome, who's producing the show in the back. Ray will also be our other host for tonight, and he'll be joining us shortly.
Sounds good. So yeah, I'm Joe. You know me, but I'm usually backstage, especially today because this is like the most crowded backstage we've had for these online meetings, and because something's happening first Tuesday of November, right? I hear. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So sounds good. So yeah, so Ray's wrestling with some technical difficulties, but that's okay. Because we will carry on, and we should probably start to go right away, right? So that we can get moving.
Let's just jump right in.
All right. So Jerome, you can take me out and bring.
All right. So for our guest this month, we're going to start off with Kim Fox. Kim is the current Cook County State's Attorney. Welcome, Kim.
Hi. Nope. I refuse to be that person who someone has to say you're still on mute. We've been doing this too long. Hi, thank you for having me back. And while I miss being at Chief O'Neill's, it's good to be back with you all virtually.
Well, we're very happy to have you on board. This is something we typically ask folks that join us live. How are you managing with COVID? I'm sure when you started this race, you did not envision having to run a campaign during a health pandemic crisis. But talk to us about how you're managing, how your staff is managing. Give us some insight.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I remind people COVID hit 1 week before the primary. And so it was so new. We were still out in the streets, and it was, wow, do we really have to stop door knocking? Do we really have to stop engaging? And it feels like that was a whole nother time. And so it's been interesting, in addition to doing campaigning remotely, I run the second largest prosecutor's office remotely. I have 4 teenage girls who are attending school remotely. And so it's like having a campaign office, a work office, a school, all at my home and trying to find space to be at home too. So it's been a challenge, particularly trying to connect with voters, connect on issues in a way that you can really feel like people are engaged. But I'm still having fun. Excuse me.
Speaking of voters. Oh, no.
No, I'm fine.
Good. Speaking of voters, how are conversations? How have conversations been like this? How have they been different this year as opposed to past years?
Excuse me. I think this year is so remarkably different in everything that we've seen, whether it's COVID and the conversations in the spring around what we were doing at the jail. Cook County Jail was a COVID hotspot, and there was a lot of attention about that, to what we saw in the wake of George Floyd, in the immediate aftermath of what does criminal justice reform look like, to later in the summer where we saw acts down on Michigan Avenue, and there was a lot of focus on what happened related to looting downtown. And so there's been an evolution of conversations that have been happening because this year has just been so different than anything we've ever seen. And there's a real tension that's growing right now when we've seen an uptick in violence where people are feeling afraid, but also knowing that we have to stay the course on criminal justice reform and not give in to fear or fear-mongering rhetoric that's coming from this president. And there's a consistent through line in all of this, is the horrible leadership from the national level that has been divisive, that has used every racist dog whistle to talk about the criminal justice system and crime and violence and law and order, that I also know that people are incredibly frustrated by.
Absolutely. can you talk to us about what the strategy is for the home stretch? November 3rd is around the corner. What is the strategy around the campaign for the home stretch? What is the campaign focusing on right
The campaign is focusing on outreach, and whatever the new world looks like. We're having some days of action starting this weekend. My hands are messy. I should be typing. Go to kimfox.com, where we're going to be doing some phone banking and getting people engaged. We really want to encourage people to do early voting. We have a new digital ad that is up that I encourage people to look at, where, I have an opponent who comes straight out of the Trump playbook, who is, again, using divisive rhetoric, who has a history of wrongful convictions. It tells the story of 4 young men who he sent to prison for 15 years for a crime that they didn't commit, and the impact that it has had on their lives. So we really want people to know what's at stake here, to not take for granted that their attention is on the top of the ticket. We are really leading on progressive reforms as a prosecutor's office. Why I'm so proud to have had the endorsement of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, Senator Harris. Cook County has been model. So reminding people what's at stake, getting them out to vote and getting them engaged, and knowing who my opponent is, so that they are not fooled or lulled into believing that this is a given in Cook County in 2020.
Absolutely. And then before we wrap up, I have one more quick question. How can NDFA help your campaign in the next 3 weeks before November 3rd, Election Day?
You can do what you've done for me these last 4 years, for which I'm so thankful and grateful for, which is amplify the importance of this race. Again, share our days of action. We need you all as you go forth and talk to your members, to talk to the people in your social media sphere about the importance of this race, to volunteer with us, show up with us. We're going to need people at polling places. We're going to need people to encourage folks to vote. I basically need you to do all the things that you already do incredibly well, and remember me while you're doing it. Put me at the forefront. I need you right now. I need you more than ever.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kim. Again, folks, you all saw it on the clicker. Go to kimfox.com and sign up to Phone Bank, Canvas, and sign up for poll watching as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Miss being around, and can't wait to gather again. See you guys.
Us too. All right, Kim, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and good luck with everything, okay?
Thank you.
Bye. All righty, folks. Next up, we have State House Representative from the 19th District, Lindsay LaPointe. Lindsay, come on board.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Really cool to be here virtually.
Just to check in, how are you? How are you doing? We are at the home stretch, almost there. Talk to us about everything.
We are doing well, and it is indeed the home stretch, although I feel like everyone's lost concept of time. So even though, we're doing everything as planned, it's still easy as a human being to realize, oh, it's October 14th. Like, we're literally just over 2 weeks short of the most important election of our lifetime. So we are going according to plan and doing well. But as all of you, as somebody who cares so much about the outcome of this election, top of the ballot to the bottom, I just think every day about making sure I'm doing everything I can do so I don't wake up on November 4th feeling awful.
No, absolutely. I'm trying to think about it too much, but I've been thinking about it a lot. How have conversations been this year? Similar to what I asked Kim, how are conversations different? Like, what are you hearing via like phone banking calls? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're making a lot of phone calls. And then in terms of door knocking, I know every campaign and every candidate has to make a thoughtful decision about what they're going to do. I'm door knocking with a buddy rather than sending out a whole army of volunteers just for obvious public health reasons. Conversations are going really well. And, it's different. I did a lot of door knocking for other candidates before I was the candidate and I was the incumbent. Generally, people really like seeing their elected official at their door, and it's just part of being accessible. I have found that as long as we door knock safely and are masked up and stepping back, that most people are actually really eager to talk to another human being. And I think it's fair to say that conversations are more engaged than they were before. The issues are a little different. During the primary, hands down, the most important issue was property taxes, and feeling like those were unstable and very difficult to deal with. And now people talk about Trump a lot because when they see anyone connected to politics at their door, that's the first thing that they want to talk about. It's top of mind. Most of the people I meet are very eager to get him out of office, and they can't wait to vote.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I've been phone banking as well, and that's the number one topic that comes up. But local elections have such a strong impact on folks as well. So yeah.
They do, and me having been in office for a little more than a year, I always make it a point to say, I'm going to be on your ballot on November 3rd. Do you have any questions for me? This is your opportunity to really engage with that person that you're hopefully going to vote yes for. And I end up getting a lot of questions about the fair tax. And of course, we'll hear more about that later, but I always bring that up to every voter and make myself available as a state rep who played a role in the crafting that constitutional language, getting it on the ballot. There's a lot of misinformation. So it's great to be able to just give people a dose of reality outside of TV commercials.
Absolutely. And speaking of TV commercials, the Fair Tax Amendment, we have to get into that. What are you hearing on the field? Any good or bad buzz?
I would say questions, and you can tell that the questions are generated by the TV commercials and the millions of dollars going in on both sides. And so what I find myself saying to people is, let's talk about the fair tax. Do you have any questions? I bet you've seen the commercials, and we all know that's the worst way to get information. So a lot of questions, and we just debunk the myths and talk about what this specific vote means on a very small portion of our Illinois state constitution. And I would say that it's more positive than negative, but when people have really clear and legitimate questions and me and other folks on the doors are able to address them, then you can just tell people are more motivated to go vote yes for it.
Can you talk to us how the fair tax, how it's making taxing structure less regressive?
How the fair tax is making the tax structure more regressive overall?
Yeah.
And I know Senator Martwick's he's gonna get into more of the weeds, so I'll leave some stuff on the table for him, because honestly, he is one of our state's resident experts on this issue. But kind of one of the arguments that we hear is that a flat tax is fair because everybody's paying the same amount. But really, middle class and lower income people, when you look at all the different ways we are taxed, middle income and lower income people, households and families carry much, much higher of a burden. And I know Rob Martwick will get into more of the details on that.
Absolutely. And then can you talk to us about what the strategy is for the home stretch? For election day, what do you need from us? What do you need from NDFA?
Well, and like Kim said, this started on March 13th. And I remember, that was the Friday before the primary when all the candidates had been out busting their butts. And I was out on that Friday night, and that's when the news started breaking that everyone should pull it back and adapt how we were going to finish off that primary. So now we're more prepared. We know that relying on phone and texting and having that toolbox is how we're going to get it done. And that's our plan. We've been doing a lot of phone banks, texting, postcards. And then I've actually worked with a really awesome group of volunteers who have buddied up with me to come door knocking, including one of the leaders of NDFA, Mary Claire. So we're going to stick to the plan and do that. And so the big things that we need help with, and just to, I didn't mention this, so I want to be very clear about this. My campaign is in very high collaboration with Rob Martwick. Of course, when we go out, we're talking about all the Democrats. We are highlighting, obviously, me, Senator Rob Martwick, the fair tax, Senator Durbin, and of course, the very top of the ticket, Joe Biden, and who will be our first female VP, Kamala Harris. But just to run down the things that we're doing to make sure we're executing our plan that we could use help with. We have postcards. Those are going to end soon, though, because a lot of people are early voting and we're getting really close. We have texting. We have phone banking. And then we also have staffing the polling places, not just on election day, although we will have to play that by ear because of public health. But early voting just started in every neighborhood in Chicago, and we have a presence there. So that's another way that people can help.
Thank you. And then one last question. For this upcoming term, what is your focus going to be? What are some things that are going to be brought to the floor?
Well, let's talk about two things real quick. We have veto session where the House and the Senate, I feel very strongly that we will be there November 17th. And what we're looking forward in veto session is a package led by the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus. And that is going to come together under the umbrella of addressing racial injustice, which of course there's many different components of that. I am very much looking forward to that because there's no doubt in my mind that systemic racial injustice exists, and it's a problem, and it takes systemic solutions. That's why we're here in the legislature. I'm really excited about the Clean Energy Jobs Act, and that is a huge environment and climate change bill that will put Illinois on a pathway to 100% renewable energy by 2050. And then for me, making sure healthcare and mental health care is not only affordable, but also accessible is really important. So there's bills that we'll be bringing forward in the spring to move that ball forward.
It sounds exciting. I look forward to it. Representative, thank you so much for being with us today. And folks, don't forget phone banking and canvassing if you're comfortable with State Rep Lindsay LaPointe.
Thanks so much, Sophia, and all of NDFA.
Thank you. Bye. All righty. And with that smooth transition, we're going to ask Joe to join us on screen. Hey, Joe. You are on mute.
There we go. Yes, oh boy, yeah. I'm sort of the person that's juggling everything backstage, and there's a little more juggling than normal today, in part because we have so many folks on the meeting, and in part because we've got a few gremlins rest a little bit. So Sophia, you need to get a drink of water. So you do that. Jump in whenever you're ready to come back. And as you jump off, or have Jerome take you off for a couple seconds, we are going to bring in our next guest from one of our favorite groups because it was our first successful campaign at MWRD, Water Reclamation District. Cam Davis.
Great. Hey, Joe, thank you for the introduction. Sophia, can you all hear me? Can you all see me?
We can hear you. We can see you. And Sophia, ironically, is getting a glass of water. Or maybe that's not ironic. I don't know.
Well, we love it when people drink water. And that's the goal of Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. We want to keep our water clean. We want to keep our air clean, our land clean. And the Water Reclamation District is our very own environmental agency here in Cook County. And it's typically not an office or a race that many people get geeked out about. But one of the things that I really love about Northside DFA is that you guys are the ultimate activists. And as somebody who grew up as an activist, as a volunteer, I honestly, I feel like all these billionaires out there get a lot of attention, and the athletes and the celebrities and stuff. I am much more interested. The people in the Hall of Fame in my head are the people like Joe and Mary Claire and all of you at Northside DFA who are activists and working every day to change the world. So my deepest thanks.
Well, I thank you very much, and you'll definitely get a chance, because I think one of the things that we love about you want to talk about activism. Dude, you won your first race as a write-in. And so one of the reasons we're here is because you're endorsed, that we want to make sure that we get an update as to what you're doing. And maybe one of the questions will be, what's it like to be a normal candidate when you know your name is on the ballot?
Yeah, well, it's I guess it's normal, but there's not really much normal about campaigning right now. There's no playbook, as we've heard from Kim and Lindsay and others. There's no real playbook for running a race in a pandemic. But I do think it helps a lot to have two great running mates. I want to give a shout out, and a big shout out, to my fellow commissioner, Kim Dubuclet.
Yes.
She and I both ran in 2018. We've worked well together to help reduce flooding and stormwater, particularly for disadvantaged communities, disproportionately impacted areas. She's running. I think she's watching tonight. So everybody wave to Kim right now to let her know that you see her. And then Ada Corral Sepulveda, who's the clerk in Hanover Park and is running with us for the first time for the Water Reclamation District. She's a millennial mom. She's a Latina. And I really believe she's going to bring a whole new constituency into the fold as we try to fight climate change, Joel. So that's the race this time around. I think Northside DFA should be very proud that there are three candidates on the Dem ticket who are working really hard on behalf of public health in an era of these federal Trump rollbacks for protection, for public health protection that we're all experiencing and seeing with horror every day.
All right. Yes. So Sophia's back. Ray is here. Yeah.
Technical problems fixed.
No, excellent. So Cam, I'm going to hand it off to these two folks. Jerome, bring me back with you.
Okay. So we went through your two running mates. Do you want to talk any more about your campaign, how we can help you, and what can NDFA and get out to vote for you?
Yeah, wow, you are so nice to ask. And I'm going to say something a little bit different than what you've heard from folks before, Ray. One of the things is, actually the only thing I'd ask is send out emails to your friends. Commissioner Dubuclet and Ada and I have all been endorsed by both the Sun-Times and the Tribune. That doesn't happen too often where those two editorial boards see eye to eye.
No.
So you can grab those endorsements online. And what I would say is just email your friends, email 20 people and just say, look, I know that this race doesn't typically get a lot of attention, but we all care about our water. Doesn't matter our age, our race, our religious beliefs, our gender, none of that matters. We're all unified by water. And having a great slate of people who are forward thinking, a diverse slate that cares about public health, it matters more now than ever.
So that being the case, have you done any like texting banks or phone banks or those types of things with other campaigns?
Yeah, have been hitching phone banking onto other local Democratic Party organizations, and that's been very helpful. But what I've been really impressed by is, and it's really been reaffirming, is how word of mouth has made the difference. Joe mentioned before the write-in campaign in 2018. Honestly, that didn't happen because of texting. That didn't happen because of fancy, expensive mail pieces. That happened because one person told another person who told another person. And you just simply cannot underscore enough how much that makes a difference. You get in touch with 20 of your friends, tell them about this important race, and you tell them to tell 20 friends, and we turn a ripple into a tidal wave.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, I know I've seen you at many events, and you have been really out there communicating a great message. So we really appreciate it. And I'm thinking when our next guest is going to be.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being in here.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Northside DFA. You guys are in the Hall of Fame, the activist Hall of Fame for me.
Coming from
That's
you,
great.
that feels good.
Yes,
Cheers
it
to that.
does.
Alrighty, so next on board we have someone joining us from the 10th District. It's State Senator Rob Marwick.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Hi, Sophia. Hi, Ray.
Hi.
Hey, Rob.
How are you?
Okay, we have you up talking about the fair tax, which is like the
The fair
most
tax?
important.
Me? What
Yeah.
would I know about the fair tax, Ray?
What don't you know? Let's start there. What don't you know?
Yes, our brilliant Rob Martwick.
Oh,
Wow.
you flatter me. No, it's obviously something that has been very important to me, and I would suggest that it's probably been very important to a lot of us.
Yes.
And Ray, I think that when I find an issue that's important to me, I work on it really hard. And of course, I did. I
You do.
filed a graduated rate structure 3 years before Governor Pritzker became governor. And much of that was adopted in what became the Fair Tax Initiative, his initiative. And of course, I was honored to be able to carry that constitutional question in the House when I was there as a representative, before I was succeeded by the far better Representative LaPointe. But I was able to carry that legislation, and I remember the 3 hours and 45 minutes of debate on it, and so happy to see it on the ballot, but we got to get it across the finish line. So it's very important to me, and I know it's very important to our state.
Is there any polling on the fair tax, like in the last couple weeks?
Well, I would imagine, given that the governor himself contributed $51 million to see its passage, I would imagine that the governor probably has done some polling. I have not been privy to it. Most of what I have seen has been via the outreach that I've been doing, whether it's social media or phone banking, or today standing outside a early voting location in the city, watching people come up. And it's a pretty mixed bag. I think there are equal parts people who've made their mind and they're done, and nothing. They can't be talked to anymore. And I think there are people walk in, they really have no idea what it's all about. And then finally, there are people, as Representative LaPointe said, who have heard the commercials, but they can't square away the two arguments. So of course they have questions. And it was fun today to talk, because I think at this point, when I'm standing at early voting and people are walking up, there's nobody that's walking up, at least in terms of the candidates, right? No one's walking up going, I just haven't made up my mind whether or not it's Trump or Biden right now, right? I mean, they know, and pretty much once they've decided along those lines, they're gonna stay on whatever that side is. And that's what I saw today. No one walked up unclear on which candidates they were going to vote for, but they were unclear on the fair tax. And so I spent a lot of time today. I'd introduce myself and ask if they had any questions, and they would say, "No, I'm good." And I would say, "What about the fair tax?" And they would say, "Oh, actually, I do have a few questions." And it was really, I really enjoyed early voting today, just being able to address those questions and answer questions. So that's been fun.
I know because all the other side information has been really just false. And that's what's confused people. And I've talked to a lot of people too in terms about the fair tax. And once I say, this isn't a tax increase for anybody less than 250,000, and there's no pensions being taxed, even though they said it, that's a total lie. Once I've talked to them, told them that, they go, "Oh, I'm for the fair tax." But I didn't know that because I was so confused by these commercials.
Well, and
So
Ray,
you're
let's give
totally
credit.
right.
Yeah, let's give credit where credit is due. The opposition realized very early on that when it came to talking to voters about the facts about what the fair tax would do, they went, "Uh-oh, we're going to lose that argument."
Yes.
And so they did what a smart campaign does. They changed the discussion. And instead of saying, "Here's what the fair tax will do for you and your bottom line in the state, and how it will improve lives for the middle class, and how it will preserve opportunities that the middle class, working class, and working poor need to get ahead in life," instead of talking about that, they said, "You can't trust those dirty politicians in Springfield." And the rank hypocrisy of the Illinois Policy Institute, whose sole
Oh,
mission is to strip away public sector pensions, is out there
yes.
saying, "Oh, well, we want to sue because we're afraid that this is going to, tax people's pensions." I'm like, all you want to do is get rid of people's pensions. So look, they've scared people, and that's a good tactic, because if
Yes.
you walk in and you don't understand it, but you're afraid of it, you'll vote no.
Yep.
So, we still have work to do. And to anyone who's listening, if you're not watching my Facebook page, please look out there, Robert Martwick on Facebook. I posted, I think now 6 short videos on the fair tax, everything from addressing some of the myths about retirement tax, dispelling the myth that no, not only doesn't it tax retirement income, but if it doesn't pass, we are going to be left with a $5 billion hole and no means to patch it. And I tell people this all the time, and I truly believe this: we are more likely to open the door to retirement tax if the fair tax fails. If it passes,
Yes.
it will keep us from having to look in that avenue. Um,
Yes.
so
Well,
today I put up a comparison, and what is the true comparison? And this is something I've said from the beginning. You cannot compare the fair tax to the current flat tax, and yet it's what we all do. Ray, you just did it yourself. It's a false comparison. It's comparing a
yes.
solution to a problem. You have to compare the solution to an alternative solution. So today I put up a video that explains how the fair tax compares to what would be an equivalent fair tax increase, which if the fair tax fails, we're looking at a 5.956% flat tax. And when you do that, then the contrast is even more stark. In those instances, everyone under $400,000 a year will see lower taxes under the fair tax than they would under the 5.95. And when you get into the $250,000 a year range, and look, I get it. If you're a middle class family, if you're a police officer or a firefighter and you're married to a teacher, you might be bumping up against that 250, and you think, gosh, in a few years, and do I want to pay more taxes? The difference between the fair tax and the flat tax of 5.95 is about $2,500 a year for that family. And it's like, we need to balance our system, and that's what the fair tax does.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. Because in my ward, in the 39th ward, we've really struggled getting out the message, getting people to listen, and all those other things. On the fair tax itself, do you want to talk about any specific issues, like how it compares to other states, or?
Well, look, the thing that I talk about often, Ray, is when we compare it to other states, Illinois has the 8th most regressive tax system in the country, right? So that
Yes,
means
it does.
compared to the other states, we are the 8th most regressive, meaning we put a far higher burden on those who can least afford to pay than we do on those who can most afford to pay. But the contrast gets even starker when you dig into the numbers. And this is what I want people to know. If you take someone who lives in Illinois and makes $70,000 a year, they report that in income, they have for compared to other people making $70,000. They have the highest tax burden in the country, right? So we often hear, especially from the opponents, from the Chicago Tribune, from the Illinois Policy Institute, we hear about this out-migration, this massive out-migration. Oh my God, people are fleeing Illinois in droves. And let's be honest, you can spin that a number of different ways, but we are losing population, and it's not good for us. But here's the key. Guess what, Ray? Guess what the average income is of those people leaving Illinois? Would it surprise you to hear that it's exactly that same $70,000 a year whose income strata has the highest tax burden in the country, right? So clearly, if we you know, and then I'm talking right to the other side here. If they want to make a big deal about people leaving Illinois, well, the people leaving Illinois is that middle class with the highest tax burden in the country. But if you make $550,000 a year in Illinois, you would find 17 other states that have a higher tax burden than what you pay here in Illinois. So think about that, right? 70,000, highest tax burden in the country. 550,000, 18th highest tax burden in the country.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound like maybe there's room to institute a little fairness, to give those people that truly are overburdened, the middle class and the working class, to give them a little bit of relief, and most importantly, have the assets, have the revenue that we need to invest in the resources that allow them a chance to get ahead. If the fair tax doesn't pass and we start looking at cuts, we go back to the draconian years of the Rauner administration, where we cut higher education and MAP grants, and we take middle class and working class children and tell them, nope. What's the old saying from Caddyshack? Hey kid, somebody's got to dig ditches, right?
Yes.
And right, so we strip away their dream. Could anything be more un-American than denying people an opportunity to get ahead in this world? And that's what denying them access to a college education does. So the alternatives are terrible. We don't want another flat tax increase. That will make everything in the middle class worse. We certainly don't want to go back to cuts. That leaves us one solution, and that's the fair tax. And we've got to get that message out to people, you know.
So how can we help get it passed? What can NDFA do?
You know, NDFA is, if nothing else, and NDFA has so many wonderful things, but if nothing else, what NDFA excels at is education, voter education. And that's what we need you to do. I need you to double down, get out there on social media. And I don't mean posting something on your page. When you post something on your page, you're talking to the people that already agree with you. Go out into social media, get out into these other neighborhood groups that might not be so NDFA friendly, and lay out the facts on the fair tax. Dispel the myths, because there's so much out there. Speak about it in the intelligent and intellectual and thoughtful fashion that I know NDFA members approach this issue with. That's how we're going to get there. Remember what I said from the onset. We win on the facts. We win on the facts. We lose on the fear. So take that message, dispel the fear. You know, one of my favorite things is the arguments for keeping the flat taxes. Well, what the flat tax will prevent further tax increases, because if they raise taxes, they'll have to raise taxes on the middle class, and they don't want to do that. But if we pass the fair tax, the first thing that they'll do is they'll raise taxes on the middle class. What?
Huh?
What?
Yeah.
So we're afraid to raise taxes on the middle class, but if we pass the fair tax, well, then we'll be happy to do it. What? It makes no sense, right? And so, you know, you can talk people off that ledge. I hear that all the time. Oh, well, I hear the first thing you'll do is raise taxes on the middle class. If I'm afraid to raise taxes, if I don't want to raise taxes on the middle class under a flat tax, why would I want to do it under a fair tax? Wouldn't I be making the same group of people mad about what I just did? So, like, again, a lot of their arguments are bunk, but they're built on fear. So if we can dispel that fear, we can get it passed. And that's what NDFA can do, and do as well as anyone I know.
And we will.
And that's what I like to hear.
I want to say the state or the Tribune discussion about how we're losing all these people is a false flag.
Yep.
I've read a couple articles from in terms of people aren't leaving because of the taxes. They're leaving because we have an older demographic. They're leaving for a lot of other reasons. And your point about the 70,000 to 250,000 just points that out further. So the whole argument about that, in essence, doesn't fit into the other side's discussion.
And Ray, I give you an example of a guy who lives right over there, right down the street from me, used to. And he left Illinois, and was a middle income guy. He left Illinois and he went to Minnesota. Now, why? Minnesota has much higher taxes than Illinois does.
Yes,
Why
it
did he
does.
go? Do you know why he went? Because as Illinois has suffered through its financial problems, instead of asking those at the top of the income scale, those who've done so well, actually the only ones who have really done well in this economy, right?
Yes,
Instead of
totally.
asking them to pay more, what we do is we did year after year after year cuts to higher education.
Mhm.
So that 2 years ago, we were funding higher education at a lower amount than we had been 10 years previously. And what, surprise, surprise, what did that lead to? It led to the highest tuition increases in the country and the lowest enrollment declines. We were putting our state system of higher education, which had been vaunted in Illinois, right? I mean, the Illinois
It's
system of higher education
bringing
was,
in so many jobs.
and we were swirling it down the toilet. And this guy said, I'm going to Minnesota. And I said, why? You'd pay more higher taxes up there. He said, yeah, but you know what? My kid can afford to go to college there and he can't here in Illinois.
Yeah.
And that's why people are leaving, because it's not the high taxes, but when you couple high taxes on the middle class, low taxes on the rich, and then every time we cut, we strip away things that allow middle class and working class families an opportunity to get ahead, like access to higher education, like tuition assistance, like in-home care for senior citizens, meals on wheels, mental health. How long do we have? Because I can go on this for an
I
hour,
know.
right?
I know.
I'm
We're right
basically
there.
reading off the Bruce Rauner playbook on how to balance our budget, right?
That's why I call him Bruce Runer.
Yes, yes, he was.
But
So,
okay, I think we have to move on to our next person. I wish we could talk for the next hour, Rob, because there's
yeah,
just
well, it would just be you and me, right? Everybody else would be asleep. But I'm grateful for the opportunity. I wish I could see you all in person. It's great to be
I
back here at
know.
NDFA. You have all always been so good to me. So thank you for the opportunity. We're going to get back to Springfield. We're going to pass an elected school board, and
Yes.
hopefully we'll be instituting the rates for the new fair tax. So thank you all so much for your time tonight. It's great to see you all. Be well.
Yes. Thank you, Rob. Okay. Mhm.
Awesome. Well,
Our next guest is Ruth Pellegrini.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
There's
How you
Ruth.
doing? Hi, Northside DFA. How you doing? Good
Hi.
to be with you.
like heads up, Ruth came to us by virtue of one of our members, Gus. So shout out to Gus if he is watching.
Right. Yes. Yes. He's been a big help to the campaign. Yeah, and he's very knowledgeable. If you want to know about history and politics, Gus is your man.
We know he's
Yes, I'm sure you
definitely
do.
there.
Yeah, he's taught me a lot.
Do you want
So,
to talk about the campaign and where you're at and a little bit of background to
sure.
inform?
Sure. I'm running as an independent and now as a write-in because I was challenged and they were able to get me off the ballot. And so now I'm pursuing the write-in. And I come from a background where I have never been in politics. So in January, I was called to do this. So that's why I couldn't go with one of the, I couldn't go Democrat or Republican because it was too late to put in the filing. So I looked into being to running as a independent, and it actually the first district is half Republican, half Democrat, half black, half white. So I thought, that's probably okay because I'm coming from a different vantage point. I really want to see healing in the first district because I was born in Inglewood. My children were born in Elwood. That's the beginning and end of first district. So when I was born in Inglewood, my parents lived there, and it was an all-white community. And at that time is when, in the 60s, when the race riots were happening, and everyone was white flighting, as we know in Chicago, in the 60s. And during that time, there were six families, six white guys who wanted to stay at the church where there was like 150 black kids coming to the Sunday school. Well, the church still moved, and the people who moved said, "Why do you want to do that?" But okay, if you want to do it, we'll just support you. So my dad was one of those white guys, and I've been there my whole life. But we moved to the suburbs, but we always went to that church. My dad was an elder at that church, and now a minister. He's one of the co-pastors. So he's now 94, and he still goes on Zoom. So my life has been very much different than many of those that did that white flight, because my life has been really strong in relationship with those who are in Inglewood. And I still go there, every week, every other week, very strong relationships there. So I really want to see a healing. So this was before all the upheaval. It was before the pandemic. It was before all the racial problems. And here my logo, my theme is Heal the City. And so it was perfect. I was already set up. I got it on all the t-shirts and, the masks. I have masks, say Heal the City. So, I come from a real different plane because I'm not a politician. And so I have not known, I've been learning as I go. So that was one reason being in the pandemic was, it was just like, wow, I got to get all these signatures and you can't even go outside. And in Tinley Park, where my office is, my campaign office is, they were shutting down all the businesses because of the, the protests and the riots going on and coming into the suburbs. And I couldn't even, open my office or anything. So it's been, I know everyone's experienced their difficulties, but I'm also a licensed electrician, and I own a sign company. And actually right now the sign company has had to move because I went down like to 10% of my usual income, because I am a supervising electrician, and I get permits for electricians who don't have licenses in the different municipalities in Chicago. And it's been down to almost nothing. And so I had to move. And so this week is crazy. So here I am with you. So excuse me. But it's like, but everyone's going through this. I'm not the only business that had to move or shut down, or it's been really challenging. So now I'm just, focusing on the campaign as much as I can, with having to move and everything. But I have a lot of support from both sides. And the interesting thing about running as an independent is that you really need to listen to both sides. You really need to hear the Democrat side and the Republican side. You really need to know, I want to know what you think and why you feel the way you do. So it's really been a growth experience for me to really, want to meet the needs of the entire community, especially since it's half and half in all these ways, So I have a lot of support, but getting the word out has been challenging in this time.
Can you talk about some of the biggest issues within the district?
The biggest issue, I think, is still racial. It's still racial because the whites really say that they care, they want to help out, but they don't know what to do, and they're afraid to go into the inner city. The inner city folks say they don't care about me. I'm like, yes, they do, but they don't know how to do it. So I feel like I'm a bridge. I am a bridge to these two cultures that have been so divided for decades and decades and decades. And that's why I guess for me, it's like, it's just such a no-brainer for me to be able to come in, because I understand both sides. I can see both sides. So to me, that's the biggest issue still. And it's really, for such a time as this, look at, it's happening. So that is, to me, that's still the biggest issue, because if we just were like a big community and we really were there for our neighbors and not afraid of our neighbors, misunderstanding our neighbors, it's just needs to be different. And I know everything that's happened with all of the racial problems has really brought insight to more of what needs to be talked about. We need to talk about these things, but and I know it's going to take time, but I think me coming into this position where Bobby Rush has always been, and there's always, since 1929, there's always been an African-American man in this position, which, was really a point of pride. But now it's like, we're coming to a time when we need some change and we need some answers and we need the killing to stop. And most of the murders and the problems are in my district. They're in first district. And I actually know what I'm going to do, and it's going to work. I know it will. So, and I can't share it right now, but but I really am excited about what we're going to do about the violence.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should discuss a little bit about the write-in ballot process, because most people don't know about that. And, so if you want to talk a little bit about that and give us information so we can share that with everybody.
Okay, sure. Thank you. First district is made up of both Cook and Will counties. And so on the Cook and Will County ballot, you will see the name Bobby Rush with the oval and Bobby Rush, the oval and Philonise White, and then an oval and a line. And they have that there just for me because I am a registered write-in candidate. You can't just put Mickey Mouse, or, some people think you can just put your grandfather's name or something. You can't do that. He won't win because the election judges know who's on the list of the official, write-in ballots. And I am a write-in ballot. And so if you write my name Ruth, and even if you mess up Pellegrini, it still is okay. So Ruth Pellegrini, and it doesn't, they still, as long as they say, that is who the person meant, and it's Pella, whatever, and that's all they
really
got.
Good information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is right in the, the election code and everything, that it doesn't have to be exactly spelled right. So Ruth Pellegrini is my name. And, there's a couple different ways that somebody might put Pellegrino water or whatever, because that's what I'll tell people sometimes is Pellegrino water with an I instead of an O, at the end. So, so that's how you do it. And then I have flyers and I've been mailing them out, and I hand them out, and people are very excited, but it's just getting the word out that, we need some change. It's time for change.
Got it. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Running, and we
Thank
appreciate
you.
talking to you.
And giving us some understanding of your campaign and how to vote correctly. So thanks.
There you go. Thank you. It's been good to be with you guys.
Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All righty. Next up, we have Ann Summercamp. Ann is the campaign manager and surrogate for Ken Mejia Bio. Just a side note, Ken is a good friend of mine. So this kind of hits me in a very nice. I'm very happy that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Lindsay said he was great too.
He is. So. He is the best candidate. I ran for state rep a few years ago, and I went, Ken is a better candidate than I ever thought about being. So I can't say enough about how wonderful Ken is. Tons of experience in the community activist. He's worked on a lot of campaigns. He helped with Chris Kennedy, Renato Mariotti, God, who else?
So many aldermanic races as well.
Yeah. What was his?
Andre Vasquez.
Andre, yes, that was the name I was trying to pull out of my head.
So, Ann, can you give us a little bit of insight? What district does Ken cover? Then what suburbs or townships are included in it? So just our members can get a sense of what.
Yeah. We don't have a full, I don't think we have one full town, but we have the bottom of Lisle. We've got a corner of Naperville. We have Warrenville. We have Winfield, a few precincts in West Chicago. We have the western part of Wheaton, which is the tough nut to crack here. And we have a little bit of Carroll Stream. So we've identified friendly precincts and not so friendly precincts. And we've gone through our friendly precincts 2 times so far, or almost 2 times. We're getting there. But then the unfriendly precincts, we have other literature that talks about how their state representative isn't really representing them, et cetera. And I guess if you guys have been in touch with Politico or whatever, you've seen that Amy Grant made a fool out of herself on a phone call and showed her true colors. So we are just kind of blowing that up a little bit, but not that we need to, because Ken's so awesome.
Can you talk to us about some of the issues within your district? Some of the issues that you're hearing at the doors, a couple of things like that.
Yeah, the doors they've been pretty fun because, as someone said earlier, people have been cooped up and they're happy to talk to human beings. So it's fun. But I'll say, do you know who Ken Mejia Beal is? And they're going, no. Is he a Republican or a Democrat? Oh, well, he's a Democrat. And they go, well, I already voted, so I voted for him. So that's awesome. But, we are always looking for people to go and do lit dropping for us and phone banking and, things of that nature. But back to the things in our district, Kim is very about chronic illness and prevention of chronic illness. And I think that will be one of the first issues that he would like to attack once he's elected.
Do you want to talk more about that chronic illness because of environmental problems, or chronic illness because our health system is so
Well, it would start with education, because a lot of things that are chronic illness can be prevented with education. And Ken he's all about education. So, your chronic illnesses are things, your Alzheimer's, diabetes, COPD. And yes, some of it is environmental, because if you live in a place where there's a dump next door or something, then you've got that pollution adding on to why you might have your COPD, etc. Go ahead.
And especially in some of the places where your district is, there are significant, we'll say, environmental issues. Is that the case?
Not necessarily.
No.
It's we have a lot of forest preserve out here. We have very mixed. It's like we've got poor people and we have very affluent people. I mean, when you're in Wheaton, that's pretty darn affluent, and that's where our opponent Amy Grant, who took over the Jeannie Ives seat, so that might give people a real clear idea of where we are.
Yes.
Just that it's beautiful out here, but our opponent seems to live in this bubble where she thinks everybody's as wealthy as she is. And Kim is a middle-class guy from a middle-class upbringing, as am I. And we know that there's only 5% of the people out here are that affluent. I mean, the other 95% of us are, middle class or low, whatever. So, yep. And somebody said, how does Ken win? Ken wins by being Ken. And we've already had Amy Grant pretty much hang herself with that phone call that she had with a donor, that little dribbles and drabs keep coming out, because she is so horribly two-faced. She says in public to the interview at the newspaper one thing, but then privately on the phone with somebody who's a potential donor, it's the complete opposite. And choices on the ballot, and Amy Grant is anti-choice for rape, incest, anything. Ken has been with the group Men for Choice, for a very long time. So he's in there for all of our good social issues that, you know, are important to all of us who are progressives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
interesting because I, heard of some of the very uncomfortable things that Ken's opponent shared about him, and just knowing very well where he stands and what he supports as far as like choice, as far as him being part of equality for all, things like that. It was just like, it was very disturbing. But I'm very glad that he pushed forward and continues to push forward. So that's great to hear.
Yep. He's an awesome man. I wish he was here. I don't know that I could possibly do him justice. He's just one of my favorite people in the whole world. So,
is there any ending remarks that you want to share about Ken? Anything you'd like to tell our members about the campaign?
Yeah, our campaign, because we're all trying in this age of COVID, about, how to campaign. Well, we've been big time on social media. Like, he's Twitter and Facebook all over the place, and he's really good at it. He's a great writer. And then, having that phone call fall into our laps was pretty helpful. We've made some small ads using her very own words against her. And again, identifying battleground precincts where it might not be that friendly, but we've got different literature for those people, just telling them who Amy Grant is. Yeah, it's been 70% turnout around here all the time, even in a cold red district like this. So I will be more proud of DuPage County than ever if we can have Ken, who's an African-American gay male, win in this cold red district. And then we have a man running for a judge named Azam. And if Azam becomes our judge, I'll just be going, oh my gosh, DuPage County, we're into our diversity, yay. And, it hasn't always been that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any other big issues that we should be talking about in the campaign from, I'm sure Ken is for the fair tax. Does he talk about environment? Does he talk about all the other cuts, higher education, regular education?
Yeah, and all of that is available on his website, kmbfor42.com. He has all kinds of issues there, and has got a strong background in finance. He started his career in college as a bank teller, moved his way up. He's now a vice president. And right now he's doing evaluations on his employees. So that's one of the reasons why he couldn't be here tonight. But and he's trying to do his job and campaign at the same time, which is crazy.
Rough.
It is so hard. Anyway, but finance is his big deal, and he's like, it's numbers. He's very, very, very into the idea of working toward getting our state budget fixed. So, that, and he knows how to do it, and he's got plans for it. So, and they are there on his website.
Great. So he understands the regressive nature of our tax system and everything else, and he's pushing that and trying to get the information out. So that's wonderful. Yeah. So I think we are about done with this wonderful interview. And would you like to say anything else about Ken?
If anybody's available for phone banking, or if anybody wants to do lit dropping or canvassing, you can sign up right there on our website. There's a volunteer page, and we're trying to do a huge push this weekend. Ken likes to go out with other candidates who are running in the area, like the judges and all that. So that's one of the things we're doing too.
Yeah, that's very effective. Okay. thank you so
Thank
much
you for having us,
being
or
here.
me for again.
Yes, but I
Thank
mean,
you.
we're all about information, education, and you know, we love your candidate. So, and we're glad you're here.
Thank
So,
you.
okay. Mhm.
Joanne.
So,
All right,
next-
folks.
do you want to do the ending or me?
I'm gonna just do a quick zoom in because I did not bring up the rest of the steering committee earlier. Can you believe that?
Oh boy, you're in trouble.
I know. We want to give everyone a heads up. We want to recognize everybody else on the steering committee. That is Mary, EJ, Matt, Kevin, Mary Claire, Joe, and Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Perfect. And here's our hero, Joe. So, next month's meeting is on November 11th. The tentative guest speakers will be determined soon, and I'm sure we'll all have a lively discussion concerning the November 3rd election. I'll cross our fingers. This meeting is traditionally election war stories, so please let us know about your weird, aggravating, illegal stories from the ballot box, and stay tuned. The steering committee elections have been put off, so we all know that. Make sure you report. Make sure, and this is important, that you report your voting member activities to northsidedfa.com. We want to keep you up to date, and the more members and more other things, is really important. So I don't think there's any other issues. Thank you so much for all our endorsed candidates.
Go help them. Go help them.
Go.
Now is the time.
Next 2 weeks, go to your neighbors, and just get everybody out. And Joe?
Like I say, just thank everybody. And again, huge list. Thanks everybody for coming on. Sophia, Ray, we, like I said, a few extra gremlins than normal, but we got through it. Jerome in the back on the wheels of steel. Thank you so much. And yes, go work. Go help all of our candidates. They're on our website. They're on our Facebook page. Watch for emails on some virtual action days. Vote yes on the fair tax. And yeah, I'm done. I need a beer.
We're good.
I may need more than a beer. In fact, I'm ready for it. So everybody else.
Oh, I've got my water.
Somebody asked. Is that the water?
So
let's wrap it up.
Jerome, are we still up?
We are. We're done. Say good night, Ray. Good night, Sophia.
Good night.